This is Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. He was first elected in 2018, defeating Democratic opponent Andrew Gillum. In this video, I will be explaining why Ron DeSantis is the best Republican candidate in terms of electability for the 2024 presidential election, and why he might be the only one who can win. Before we get started, I hope that if you enjoy this video, you will hit the like button. And if you don't enjoy it, and if you're triggered by my opinion, be sure to leave a dislike. It helps with the algorithm. Also, leave a comment. I try to read as many comments as I can. I try to reply to productive ones or constructive questions and criticisms. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. First, Ron DeSantis comes from a swing state. This is Florida, of course. Now, people seem to be thinking that, Florida's not a swing state anymore. That could not be further from the truth. In fact, Florida is still a huge swing state. It's critical. The Republican Party cannot win any presidential elections without it. They haven't done so since 1924. And losing Florida in 2024, although it's not insanely likely, they have no path to victory without Florida, unless they do a heck of a lot better in the Rust Belt and in other places in the Sun Belt. So DeSantis coming from Florida certainly helps. Just because Trump won Florida by 3, which is a pretty good margin, does not mean it's not a swing state. They still have elected statewide Democrats like Nikki Fried. They still, elections there are still quite competitive. Democrats still hold competitive House seats there. So Florida could still very well flip in 2024. But DeSantis running as the Republican nominee, I don't think Florida would really be in play for the Democrats. If the Republicans run DeSantis, there'd be like a 90% chance that he'd carry it if he ran as for president in 2024, which is better than, adding into the 2020 election, I estimated that Trump had a 54% chance of carrying Florida. So, DeSantis coming from a swingy state would definitely help. Now, another reason why DeSantis is a great Republican candidate is because he is so popular with the Trump base, but he hasn't really lost his suburban support. Now, Ron DeSantis in 2018 did not do great in the suburbs. We know this. He lost Pinellas County, he lost Duval County, he lost some of these more suburban counties. However, that was in a blue wave year. That was in a year where Democrats won the generic ballot by 9%. And that alone, the fact that DeSantis was able to win this gubernatorial election, despite the year being Democrat plus 9, that's a lot about his ability to win competitive elections. And like I've been saying, I think that he's a special candidate. Now, people are going to combat me and say, well, Andrew Gillum was a liberal Democrat. In Florida, they like more moderate Democrats if they elect him at all. He was a weak opponent. His primary challenger, Gwen Graham, probably might have beaten DeSantis. I think she could have won, or she would have done better than Gillum at least. But that still isn't, you're still not acknowledging the fact that DeSantis was able to win in a D+9 environment in a state like Florida. He made Florida vote nearly 10% to the right of the country. That hasn't happened for a very long time. With the exception of the 2010 Senate race, that was the only time that happened in the 2010s. And by the way, the 2010 Senate race was Republican versus essentially independent and Democrat, but the independent was basically a Democrat, so yeah. But that was kind of a fluke. In 2012, Florida voted essentially close to the national environment. I think it voted like 2 points to the right of the national environment. In 2014, in their gubernatorial election, Florida actually voted to the left of the national environment. In 2016, Florida voted 4 points to the right of the national environment. Then in 2018, using DeSantis' gubernatorial numbers, Florida voted 10% to the right of the country in a blue wave year, where Democrats did very well in House seats. I mean, Democrats flipped 2 competitive House seats in Florida and came close to flipping another one. So, DeSantis did a great job winning in a blue wave year. But he's managed to have that suburban appeal that people like Romney and your more moderate Republicans have, while managing to hold on to the Trump base. He's the only candidate who can say this. To me, there are 2 sects of the GOP. There's either the moderates who have suburban appeal, or the Trumpian candidates who have great rural, white working class appeal, but have no suburban appeal at all. Name any other candidate, and I'll put them in one of those categories. DeSantis, he leans Trumpian, sure, he's very popular with the Trump base, but he has suburban appeal, and that's why he's so scary for Democrats in 2024. He hasn't necessarily had a history of winning the suburbs, that I will say in 2018, and like I said before, he didn't do great in suburban counties, but I still trust him to win the suburbs. If I'm a Republican, still trust him to win the suburbs more than I trust someone like Donald Trump or Josh Hawley or Kristi Noem. At the same time, he did very well in the rural part of the state. Now, this was in 2018. The GOP was a Trumpian party back then. Now it's kind of more divided. But based on what I'm seeing online, like whether it be on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube, people like Ready Go Politics and Real American Politics are both insanely Trumpian. They love DeSantis. He's the only candidate who is appeal to both suburban voters and Trumpian voters, and I say that with full confidence. There's not a doubt in my mind that that's the case. Now, another key reason that DeSantis is a great candidate is because he's popular for his handling of COVID-19. So COVID-19 has been a pretty divisive issue for Americans. It shouldn't be. We should just be rallying around the flag and trying to do our best. Obviously, I hope the end is here. Is near. I don't want to jinx anything, but we have a vaccine. I hope, I'm going back to school 3 days a week. I'm very grateful for that opportunity, but we're still in the pandemic. I still have to wear a mask. I still have to social distance. I can't play sports the way I used to in 2019. So we're still in the pandemic, and this has caused a lot of divide. There are people who, I guess the most left position is that there should be, lockdowns. People shouldn't be going to school. It should be fully distanced. The most, strict precautions you can take. And I guess the right, no mask mandate. Everyone's going to school. Life is normal, kind of like what's happening starting in Texas and Mississippi. So these are they're very different opinions. Obviously, people are very polarized. But DeSantis, he took a lot of heat over the summer when Florida had, more cases per capita than anyone, when they were having tens of thousands of cases every day, which at the time was a lot. It obviously, in the falls, everyone started to have that, or at least to some degree. Obviously, Wyoming didn't have that, well, because it doesn't exist, but other states started to have the same amount of cases that Florida had in July of 2020. And they kind of got over their curve. Obviously, they had, they didn't do great in the winter, fall, when it came to cases. There was that winter surge that everyone was talking about, but they still DeSantis took a lot of heat over the summer for all the cases he was having in his state, and in the end, Florida and California, which handled the pandemic, polar opposites, had similar results. California had a strict lockdown and mask mandate. DeSantis, in Florida, they had a lockdown for like a month. They had barely any mask mandates anywhere, except for like in a few areas. And they had the same results. So there's been a lot of praise for DeSantis for not having strict precautions, but still having similar results to other states with stricter precautions, or stricter restrictions, I guess you could say. I don't want to say precautions. That sounds weird. So DeSantis' ability to handle COVID. And, Floridians, I'm not praising, obviously I'm doing my best to be unbiased. I'm not praising DeSantis' handling of COVID-19, but Floridians are. Look at these polls. These polls are saying that DeSantis is popular for his handling of COVID-19. At one point in the summer, he was underwater. The majority of Floridians didn't like his handling. And then, towards the end, or towards close to the present day, I guess you could say, DeSantis' handling of the pandemic got progressively more and more popular as people saw what was going on in other states. And those are the reasons that I think DeSantis is a great candidate for 2024. His handling of the pandemic was popular. He has appealed to both Trumpians and suburban voters, and he's from a swing state. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.